So what if you took the fundamental mechanics of Black Flag, but instead of a swashbuckling pirate adventure sailing vast blue oceans, singing shanties and taking prizes, you just skipped to the sad parts and stayed there? This isn't exactly a ringing endorsement, but trust me when I say it's a good thing. Sort of. It manages to breathe new life into an already extremely interesting character of Adewale and gives us more time with lovable game mechanics from the main title this game is attached to. Don't be fooled by the way this game may be sold to you. They market it as a separate game, but I couldn't tell you why. It was released as DLC and it hasn't changed since then, so it should be treated as such. Alright, I'm gonna ramble along if I'm not careful, so let me give you the spiel. We've gone on a journey to look back at the Assassin's Creed franchise and lead up to Mirage, and this is the DLC following Black Flag known as Freedom Cry. There will be no restraint on spoilers ahead, and you should be warned of some graphic content coming up. If you're cool with that and you want to recap on Addie's life after the Jackdaw, come along. So, like the Tyranny of King Washington, we find ourselves with gameplay that's very familiar from the base game, along with a couple new options and different contexts in which to apply them. The combat is more or less the same, with the exception being that Addie will have to deal with a far more basic set of primary weapons, replacing the dual swords and pistols with a vaguely sharp piece of metal and a tube.
The tube.
The machete is probably my favorite change because frankly, the single shot blunderbuss having a low range and lack of accuracy when you're often fighting around slaves you're attempting to rescue can be a bit of an issue. The machete, however, is a brutality that I can get behind. Making the whole game about combating slavery and making essentially everyone you fight in the act of doing something heinous means that hacking away at enemies with a dull blade is very much alright in my book. Now that being said, I much prefer the speed of the upgraded machete options, but narratively I'm cool with this rather brutal approach. The gameplay loop here is simple. Just about everything you do will be about freeing people. There's some of the stuff that Edward did, like hunting beasts of the sea or exploring shipwrecks, the Jackdaw included actually, which is a nice touch even if I have no idea why it's at the bottom of the ocean because I don't consume AC media outside the games. Apparently it's in a book or a movie or something, I don't know. But for the most part, everything you do will be focused on freeing as many people as possible, where previously we had convoys, we now have slave ships, which come with the added challenge of not hitting them before boarding, something I often failed to do. What used to be about stealing the fruits of their labors for our profits, plantation raids are now about killing enough overseers to free the people there, which comes with an interesting stealth condition where detection will lead to rapid loss of life. You'll also have other interactions around town, like stealing a key to open a cage, running down an overseer before they can run down the slave they're chasing, public beatings you can stop, injured you can carry to safety, escorts you can interrupt, and the one I find most interesting in auctions where you can kill a bunch of people or just pay the asking price. It's a nice touch to avoid a bit of bloodshed, even if only for a moment. The only real problem with the gameplay found in our tiny little slice of the world is that it might be a little too good. The world feels small here, and that's because it is, but that adds an extra layer onto the main issue in that they did a fantastic job of making it all feel pointless, which I believe is by design. You didn't have to get an A in history class to know that Addie isn't going to stop slavery here. Assassin's Creed changes the details of events, but history always plays out the same way in their stories. It's their thing. So you know that no matter how many you free, it's all going to be pointless in the end, and yet you're sucked into doing it out of moral obligation. How am I supposed to walk past men in chains, ones being beaten or drowned or hurt in need of help, and not do anything knowing that I alone have the power to do so? If I don't help, who's going to? Especially when I hear about a slave convoy, I've got the only ship that's ever going to come to their rescue. I can't just ignore it when I get the call. The problem is that this isn't like when Edward set sail in search of treasures. There's no shanties being sung on your ship, there's no prizes to take, and no riches to be won. Just a never-ending battle against the worst of man. I'm thankful that Freedom Cry was so short because I don't know if I could have survived for playing it much longer. It's good, to be sure, but god, it wore down on me quickly. Let's get on to how the narrative hurts just as much.
Every day, more slaves arrive.
Human cargo makes for lucrative trade. I once hoped men of education could be made to see the cost. The profit makes them ignorant.
The story to be found here in Freedom Cry is actually pretty fast. I did the whole thing in one sitting, but it's very much worth talking about. We open the game on a mission for the assassins, Addy having joined years before at this point, where we are intercepting a ship carrying a Templar parcel which looks to be the precursor box from Rogue, but I'm not positive on that. Once the package is in our hands, however, 3 ships will appear on the horizon, forcing us into a daring retreat through the storm. Which, I mean, I took on 4 ships to get here, but cutscene rules, I guess? Unfortunately for the ship, Addy isn't quite the helmsman that Edward was, and the storm will take the ship down beneath the waves, washing us up on shore and Port-au-Prince. The first thing Addy will see upon waking up is an overseer chasing down an escaping woman, so we grab the first rusty piece of metal we see and chase after to help. She will be kind enough to point us in the direction of someone who can help us find the recipient of the package we stole in Bastien Josephi, who I'm just going to call the madam from now on because I know I butchered that pronunciation. We tail a gentleman to the local brothel and eavesdrop on a conversation she's having while blending in around the place. After we hear what she has to discuss with the governor, we approach and find out she's far more than a brothel owner, playing a side all her own, leveraging Templar money and influence in a way to help slaves while maintaining her own position. She's perceptive, intelligent, charismatic, and just an all-around interesting character. Addy shows his best side too as he adeptly dances through the minefield that a loader conversation like this becomes. We're sent to speak with our agent on the plantation, and after, go save who you can from the men assaulting the Maroon hideout, the Maroons being the resistance here. Several times in the game there will be missions locked off behind objectives to complete, which normally I'd hate, but they aren't particularly egregious here. The first one asking you to recruit 20 Maroons, which gently encourages you to free the plantation you have to walk through anyway to get out of here, so that's not so bad. With that finished, you take to the docks on a dark, stormy night to steal the ship that will become the Expecto Creed. When you get back from taking over a slave ship and whatever other nautical adventures you want, it's time to go undercover. Dressed in rags, you will sneak into the governor's mansion as a slave and sneak out at night to eavesdrop on a conversation he's having. He speaks of a voyage and how they intend to fund it. The details are vague, but we learn it's about navigation. It turns out he's helping with an expedition that aims to circumnavigate the globe and record that information. Information about the exact dimensions of the world will be a massive advantage for whoever has them, and we intend to steal that information. The Madame is less impressed than Addy, but all the same, the value of that info is too much to ignore. He comes up with a cunning plan to replace some of the voyage's illiterate slaves with literate ones to steal the information out from under their noses. It's a cunning plan, and I have to say I'm a fan of it. Unfortunately, after switching the manifests and getting them on board, Addy will spot a pirate fleet intent on attacking the voyage, forcing us to step in to protect the vessel before pirates can befall it. Next up is easily the most impactful mission in the game as Addy finds out about a slave ship incoming and intends to intercept it. The Madame pushes back, saying that all the slaves we freed have kicked up the hornet's nest and that we should leave this one alone lest we do even more harm to the slaves that aren't yet free. I understand where both of them are coming from here, and they both make valid points, but I'm on Addy's side. This was always going to get worse before it got better, and quitting now would set them back overall. He has a chance to free people from chains, and he's going to take it, because it may not be the easy choice, but it's the right one. He should have heeded her warnings, however, as when it's clear the escorts will not be able to fight off our ship, the last one begins firing on the slave vessel, clearly a message to stop attempting to free these people, as they would see them dead before lose them. Addy will board the sinking ship and do everything in his power to save as many from their bondage as possible, but for all his effort, it will be for naught. Even freeing as many as he could, the ship will fill with water and you will have to swim past the dead and dying to get out. It's a shockingly powerful moment from this usually lighthearted series, as you will climb the ship deafened by the screams of those you climb over to free yourself, knowing the fate that you've doomed them to. The rage this fills Addy with is likely felt by anyone playing, and whether it's the right move or not, the governor will die for this atrocity, and it's us who will do it. The assassination itself isn't worth discussing, but to watch the kill, as Addy spits in the face of his creed he holds so dear as he kills him slowly, it's a powerful moment. There was a second I felt the creed tugging at me saying that this was wrong, but then this man changed my mind.
I have killed many men on principle, but never have I wanted one to suffer as much as you. To understand what it is to gasp and beg for your life, like the innocents you drowned.
You mean those slaves? That ship? But They're not even human. Without the discipline and guidance of their masters, they turn to rebellion. Murder. Like you.
I only wish that were true.
With this monster dead, it will be time for us to leave. And while he will stop to say a goodbye, there isn't much time between this and where our credits roll, marking the end of our story. Freedom Cry was so much more than it had any need to be, and I'm so glad they went for it. I'll wrap it up in a minute, but first, how about something a little bit lighter? The music here deserves to be talked about, so let's get into that. Olivier Derivière, nope, putting it on the screen. The composer here brings one of the most fitting soundtracks here with songs that feel so perfect that I couldn't imagine anything else playing in the background.
Ma perele la sirène, oh. Ma perele la baleine, oh. Gade machi mwen youno, ma le rive mwen agoe. Mache la rido bagay chance. Dosu ma asae, ma asakala dogwe, anasi adogwe. Dosu maasae, marasakala dogwe, anasiya dogwe, dokoli dogwe agoe. Ye ale mon le miso, batalaye. Pierre allemand les misouilles, bataille. Pierre allemand les misouilles, bataille.
So that's Freedom Cry, taking the most fun-centric Assassin's Creed game and making it a miserable way to spend a few hours. I can't believe that I mean that as a positive, but I do. The studio that worked on this clearly took the project seriously. It was decided to bring one of the ugliest parts of history to our screens, and it was treated with dignity that I really appreciate. The people we fight against aren't cartoonishly evil. There's no plot to enslave all of mankind or take over the world. It's just the genuine lack of humanity that plagued parts of the world at this time. I felt engrossed in the content from start to finish, and the way the world wore me down in such a short time speaks to the strengths of both the narrative and the gameplay that facilitates it. Overall, the short experience is one that I can easily recommend that you play, and Ubisoft should be proud of what they did here. With that being said, it's time to play us out. Thank you all for getting to the end. As always, I appreciate it deeply, and if you wouldn't mind dropping me a sub so that you know when the next video is out, that would be awesome. Rogue is slated for next week, and it's a short one, albeit very enjoyable. That's going to be it for me, guys. This is Purple signing off. Have a wonderful night, and always remember to smile. Thanks, guys.
I will return, yes. But I feel a tide changing within me. I'm no longer young. I must devote my energy to those who struggle for freedom. I will use my conviction and my creed to defend them alongside anyone who will help me.